Cascading is a fundamental feature of CSS. It's an algorithm defining how to combine properties values originating from different sources. As the name itself suggests, cascading style sheets, in other words, the cascade algorithm, is at the core of understanding and using CSS. The cascade combines the importance, origin, specificity, and source order of the applicable style declarations to determine exactly which declaration should be applied to any given element. And if there's a conflict, how to resolve that conflict. In other words, how to tell which CSS rule wins. There are a lot of terminology and concepts surrounding the cascading algorithm. However, I believe to have a working knowledge of the cascading algorithm, you should understand these four concepts. And these are origin or origin precedence, merge, as well as inheritance and specificity. So let's tackle the first two, origin and merge. When two declarations are in conflict, in other words, they specify the same property for the same target, origin precedence rule kicks in. And it's a very simple rule. And the rule is the last declaration wins. Now, when trying to figure out what the last declaration is, you have to remember that HTML is processed sequentially. That means top to bottom. So as you see the declarations happen, the lower on the page they are, the more precedence they have. And also, for precedence, think of external CSS as declared at the spot where it's linked to. So usually it's declared in the head somewhere, but there could be other styles that are declared in the head. And to figure out which one was declared last, imagine that the entire contents of an external CSS file were cut and pasted straight into the head portion where that external CSS is declared. When different CSS declarations do not conflict, that is, they still target the same element, but the CSS properties with which they target that element are different, there's even a simpler rule, and that is that declarations merge. So a declaration for example, font size and a declaration for color, since they're two different properties, when they're targeted to the same element, even if they're targeted from two different origins, they will merge into one, and the element will get both the font size and the color. Let's take a quick look at an example of that in code. Okay, so here I am in Sublime Text, and I'm looking at origin.html that is located in the examples lecture 17 folder. Let me go ahead and hide the sidebar so we could see the file a little bit better. So to go over the structure of our HTML, in the head we have a link that links our external.css, which is also located in the same folder as this file, and you can see that file is right here, and it specifies that every paragraph tag should have font size increased to 130%, the background will be gray, and the color of the text will be white. Now, right after that, we have a style tag, again, still in the head, that overrides the P element and says that the color, that is the text color, should be maroon. Now, when we get to the actual viewable content, we have a couple of paragraphs here. The first one is just a simple paragraph, and the second one is a paragraph where we've declared an attribute style and specified color of the text to be black. So let's take a look at the first paragraph. You can see that the background of the paragraph is gray, and the text color is maroon. Now, how do we get this gray and maroon? Well, let's take a look. We first declared external CSS. That's the first thing that comes in the HTML file. So remember, I told you to think about it as if we basically took these contents and pasted them straight into the spot. So basically, we've declared that we want the font size to be increased, the color should be, background color should be gray, and the color, the text color, should be white. However, right after that, we turned around and overwritten that with another color declaration and said that the color, in fact, should be maroon. And that's really the last thing that we could see as far as the text color of a paragraph tag. And that is why this paragraph right here does in fact have its text color maroon. That is because the last declaration of that color won. The second paragraph, however, has its text color black because the very last declaration of the text color is black, so therefore the text color is black. So that's our origin precedence rule in action. However, unlike the color property, we have other properties here, which are the background color and the font size, that are still being applied to both paragraphs. And that's our example of a merge. In fact, if we right-click on this paragraph and go ahead and inspect the element, we could see that the first paragraph does in fact have the color maroon, and it's coming from origin.html, line 9. That's our style tag inside our head section. but you can see that it's showing you that other things apply as well. That background color is gray and the font size is 130. And the Chrome developer tools are clearly showing you here that we've overridden the color that was specified in external.css with our color maroon, and that's why you see the color crossed out here. The next concept we're going to take a look at is inheritance. And that's a pretty simple concept. The basic idea is that you have the document object model tree. And if you specify some CSS property on some element, all the children and grandchildren and so on of that element will also inherit that property without you having to specify the property for each and every element. So for example, if I specify one property on the body tag, every element that is a child of a body tag, or even a child of a body tag, and so on, will inherit that property. Similarly, if I specify a property on some element within my HTML page, every child and grandchild and so on of that element will also inherit that property, but obviously no parents of that element will inherit that property and therefore will be completely unaffected by it. So let's take a look at what inheritance looks like in code. While inheritance in CSS is a pretty simple concept to understand, it happens to be a very powerful technique as well. It allows me to specify one rule and have all the children of the target element inherit that rule. Let's take a look at inheritance.html, which is also located in the same folder as the previous file. It's a very common practice to specify some declarations for the body tag. And the reason is obvious. Body is the top element in our HTML as far as the viewport is concerned. In it, I could specify some rules for the entire HTML document, and then using our cascade origin precedents, override some specific rules a little bit lower down the line while keeping everything else very consistent. So here in our example, as you could see, I specified that any text appearing in our document should be color red. And I also specified that everything should be aligned center, and, which is very common, to specify one font that will be consistent throughout the entire HTML document, in this case, Helvetica. Then what I did was I specified a particular color of the text just for paragraphs. And even though each paragraph will inherit color red, we're here to override that with color blue. Last, in the H2 tag here a little bit lower to the bottom, I'm using again the origin precedence rules to override the text color to green for this particular subheading too. And as you could see, our H1 here in the browser is red, and so is the first H2. And they're red even though I never specified H1 or H2 to be red. I just said that anything inside the body color should be red. And you notice that every single block level element here is centered. And the reason it's centered is because I specified again on the body that the text align should be center. Same goes for font family. It's Helvetica throughout the entire document. Again, I never specified text align or font family for every single element in the page, but I did specify it for the parent element, the body tag. So as you could see, this is pretty powerful. Okay, so since this lecture is getting a little too long, I'm going to split it up and we'll finish specificity in part 2.